Welcome to the Missouri Times 24th District Senatorial debate between Representative Schupp and Jay Ashcroft. One of the biggest races in the entire state. And when the Senate, every senator matters. So it definitely will be something that impacts everyone watching throughout Missouri. And we thank you for joining us this afternoon. We'll start with some opening statements. Representative Schupp, we'll ask you to go first, followed by Mr. Ashcroft.
Thank you to the Missouri Times for providing this opportunity. I'm State Representative Jill Schupp, and I'm running to be our next state senator because I want to see the state I love get back on track and move forward. When we support policies that put the middle class ahead of special interests, we help create an economy that works well for all of us. When we ensure that our kids have access to a quality public education and that our college students graduate without having to overcome a mountain of debt, we help ensure a dynamic and vibrant future for the next generation of job creators, innovators, employees, and leaders. When we focus on policies that help seniors age in their own homes and encourage small business success and allow working people to make a decent living instead of focusing on issues designed to divide us, like limiting women's access to health care, then we are moving Missouri in a positive direction. We stay on the right track when we honor our veterans by helping them access health and mental health services. But when state policies promote arming teachers or breaking our promise to students by underfunding our schools or pushing districts into bankruptcy, as they do now, we're off track and are doing real harm. When single donors and special interests can use their money without limitation to buy influence over elected officials in Missouri, it is clear our ethics laws are sorely lacking. We can do better. You know me. My public service is an open book, and my office has an open door. We share a vision of what a strong and vibrant Missouri might be. We know what it will take to encourage future generations to want to raise their families here, as many of us have. Thank you for watching today. I appreciate the opportunity to earn your support.
Hello, my name is Jay Ashcroft, and I'd like to first thank the Missouri Times for providing this opportunity to speak to you about my vision for how we can make the 24th District better and how we can continue to grow the state of Missouri and create better opportunities for the people of the district. I'm running for the state Senate because I believe that the purpose of government should be to protect our ability to live our lives as we would like to, as long as we're not hurting someone else. As Thomas Jefferson said, the purpose of government is to protect us from others and not from ourselves. As long as government tries to protect us from ourselves, it gets in the way of us being able to make the decisions that we know best and to live our lives the way we would like to, which also stops us from being able to be as successful as we could be. As a father of 3 children, an engineer, having worked in the defense industry, taught at the community college as a professor of engineering for 6 years, and working as a lawyer now, I understand how we can change things in Jefferson City, how we can have individuals in Jefferson City that will listen to the people of this district instead of telling the people of this district, and how we can create a better environment for economic growth and an ability for all of our children to have a better opportunity for education and to live their lives to the best that they can. I thank you for taking your time to participate by listening or watching this event, and I thank you for your just participating in the electoral process. I ask that you would vote for me on November 4th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The first topic will lead you, Mr. Ashcroft. Why are you running for state Senate?
Well, as a husband and father of 3 children, I'm really concerned with the opportunity that my kids will have when they get older. When I was growing up, it was well understood that if you worked hard, you would have greater opportunity than a previous generation. That was the promise of America. And I've been concerned as I've looked at other individuals with older children who are graduating from college that aren't finding the opportunities they'd expected to find, and friends and colleagues that are in jobs that were not the jobs they hoped to be in, that they just aren't finding that opportunity to excel and to grow and to live their life the way they'd want to. And I think we need more people in Jefferson City that understand that the purpose of government is to protect your ability to live your life the way you'd like to, as long as you're not hurting someone else. I think too many politicians go to Jefferson City just to tell everyone else what to do, and that's not working.
Yep. Representative Schupp.
Thank you. Yes, I am a daughter, a sister, a wife, and a mom. Those roles have informed me. I'm a former teacher and a 20-year businesswoman, And what I've learned is that when you're willing to work hard and welcome people with varying viewpoints and different ideas, you can get a lot of good accomplished. In 2000, I retired to stay home with my kids while they were in school. And I ended up getting involved with the schools and decided that the best way to make some positive change in our school district was to run for the school board. So I worked on practical things like air conditioning our schools, like lowering class sizes to support student achievement, like introducing elementary foreign language. And during my 6-year tenure, all of the things that I ran on were accomplished by those of us who worked hard together. I'm very proud of that record. The reason I decided to run for state representative is because I talked to former state representative Rachel Storch. Many of you probably know her. Rachel said to me one day, "Jill, the work you do is really important, but when you go to Jefferson City, you can make changes in state policy that will truly change people's lives for the better." I listen to those words every day that I serve in Jefferson City. I want to do things that change people's lives for the better. That's why I'm running.
Since the Affordable Care Act was passed in Washington, there's been a debate in every state about expanding Medicaid, and Missouri being no exception. If elected, would you vote to expand Medicaid here in Missouri? And we'll start with Representative Schupp.
Thanks. Scott, like it or not, the federal government is going to continue supporting health care throughout our nation. So the question becomes whether the dollars that we pay here in the state will go to fund citizens' health care in California and New York, or whether those funds will come back to support people who need health care access here in Missouri. This is going to be a really critical issue in the upcoming legislative session. Why? Because in 2015, that is the last year that we have that the federal government will pay 100% of the cost of expanding health care access to almost 300,000 Missourians. Right now, as our tax dollars go to other states, we have sick friends and neighbors in this state who wait until they're so ill that they have to go to the emergency room for care. And often they wait too late. 1,700 people die each year because of lack of access to health care. If the moral imperative for expansion isn't enough, then let's think about why groups like the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, countless faith organizations, including the Catholic Conference, doctors, hospitals, Republican Senator Kit Bond all support access to the expansion of health care in Missouri. Whether it's the infusion of billions of dollars into our economy or the addition of 24,000 good-paying jobs in the first year alone, there is lots of good reason to support the expansion of Medicaid in Missouri. So frankly, I'd like to hear where my opponent stands on this issue. At one point, we know he said he was supportive of it, and then later he indicated when the Tea Party put pressure on him that he might not be supportive. There is no time for equivocation on this issue. As my husband likes to say, we're burning daylight. We need someone in the Senate who will be ready to move and support Medicaid expansion on day one, and I want to be that person.
Well, Mr. Ashcroft, go ahead.
Well, I think that we do have a problem in the state of Missouri with individuals that do not have access to affordable and good medical care. Medicaid expansion is definitely one of the options that's on the table, and it has been debated, and I think we need to continue to debate that. I spent 10 years in engineering before I went to law school, before I practiced law and decided to run for this office, and one of the things I learned about in engineering was that whenever you look at a problem, we need to make sure that we focus on that problem and not just on one particular solution. The problem is that we have individuals that need access to good health care, and it needs to be affordable in the state. We had individuals that had that ability to get that. Because of changes in Obamacare, the funding is no longer there for them. So at the state level, we need to make a change. My concern is that we do what's right for the state of Missouri and the people of the state of Missouri. Missouri isn't quite like a lot of other states. We have about 50% of our population is in urban centers like St. Louis and Kansas City. About 50% of our population is in rural areas. What I support doing is not saying I will vote for anything that says Medicaid or I'll vote against anything that says Medicaid, but saying what is the best solution for the people of the state and how can we provide the best medical care as cheaply as possible so that we're not burdening our businesses and our taxpayers more than we have to, and yet still supplying the necessary medical care. My father-in-law is a rural doctor that works in a clinic that's supported by federal dollars to provide medical care. We need to do that, but I don't want to just pick sides. I want to find the best solution. There's too much picking sides. We need to do what's best, and that's where I stand.
Thank you. An ongoing debate in Missouri has been tax policy. The previous session saw the first tax cut in several years. I'll start with you, Mr. Ashcroft. Do Missourians pay the right amount of tax rate too high or too low?
Well, I think, my policy has always been that we should pay the lowest amount of taxes we can while still supporting the services and provisions of the state government that we need. And I think that that's what every legislator and every government official should do. We should make sure that we are placing the least burden on the people of the state that we can while still providing the necessary support services and infrastructure that's needed as having a government. Every dollar that the government spends comes from you or me, our neighbors, our friends, and we should always make sure that government is a good steward of that. Having said that, we still need to make sure that we have funds to pay for our government. We need to have good schools. We need to have good infrastructure. We need to have emergency support services. We need all that. But we should always say we're going to provide that the governmental support and infrastructure that we need, but do that as efficiently as possible because we're using the people's money and we owe it to them.
Representative Schupp.
Thanks. Scott, I support tax policies that put the middle class economic needs first. When the middle class does well, we all succeed. Unfortunately, the Republican-led legislature in Jefferson City is supporting policies that continue to shift the tax burden onto the middle class. How? By continuing to cut taxes on corporations and billionaires and expecting the rest of us to make up the difference. Just this past May, this latest tax cut is going to leave us $800 million in the hole. Touted as a benefit to the middle class, it's going to save the average Missouri middle class family about $40 a year, and it's going to devastate our schools. And people like you and I are going to have to make up the difference. Tax policy needs to be about encouraging the things we want, like protecting small businesses and helping them grow. And low taxes are only one tool in the toolbox. Talk to any of the leaders from the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, and they will tell you that there are other ingredients that are keys to economic success, like quality education, like an educated workforce, strong transportation infrastructure, and an inclusive and welcoming community. Ultimately, our budget and our policies are about setting priorities, and my priorities are clear. Providing our kids a pathway to opportunity with strong public schools, and making sure middle class and working families can earn what they need to take care of themselves and their families, and ensuring that even the wealthy pay their fair share. My opponent's priorities are clear too. He is funded by the single biggest special interest of all, Rex Sinkfield, and I think we are all pretty clear that this is the guy who wants to create an everything sales tax, shifting the tax burden onto those who can least afford it. What a drain that's going to be for our middle class families and for our economy.
An issue that's always at the top of the legislative discussion recently is gun control. What are your general thoughts on gun control and in the balance between Second Amendment rights? I'll start with you, Mr. Ashcroft.
Well, I think that everyone, especially those of us that have children, are worried about the safety of our kids, are worried about our communities to make sure that they're safe. I think there are a lot of things that we can do to promote that welfare. One of the things that really has been, I think, a very good bipartisan solution was Mayor Slay and Senator Schmidt had looked at the creation of a gun crimes docket or a gun docket. And I think it's very important that we enforce the laws that we have, that when individuals have broken those laws or violated them in a violent way, with guns, that we take action and that we take those guns off the street. And that there are a lot of different ways that we can try to stem the flow of guns to individuals that shouldn't have them. I'm all for that. I think that it's a safety of our community and that we should work toward that.
Representative Schupp.
Yes, thanks. Well, when law enforcement tells us that they're being outgunned on the streets, with everything from access to handguns and assault weapons, it's clear that we need some common sense solutions to dealing with rampant gun violence in our region and in our state. So clearly, in doing the bidding of gun manufacturers and the extremist arm of the NRA, our state legislature has once again gone too far. Last year, it tried to nullify federal gun laws. This year, the legislature overrode the governor's veto, putting into effect laws that allow teachers to be armed in our schools, that allow 19-year-olds to carry concealed weapons, and that allow people like you and me to carry weapons openly on our person. Perhaps even somebody in the room is doing that. That law turns federal law enforcement officers into the criminals when they try to enforce laws in the state, and it doesn't sound like common sense legislation to me. It keeps me up at night to think that in the state of Missouri, we're becoming the wild, wild west, where another Sandy Hook crisis could occur. Many of you will remember back in 1999 when legislation was on the ballot promoting conceal and carry. The people in the district in which we live voted overwhelmingly against that conceal and carry law. And what happened? The legislature went ahead and overturned that vote, just as the legislature has done with puppy mills. This is dangerous, and the people of my district do not want unreasonable gun laws in the state of Missouri. They want common sense rules and legislation. The person you send to Jefferson City needs to be a person who is listening to the community and who is willing to stand up for common sense rules and regulations. I think I'm that person.
Thank you. Since early August, most everyone in the St. Louis area, maybe the entire state's been touched by the events in Ferguson. Many folks have looked for different local communities, the federal government and the state government, to find a way to help. What do you see as the role that the state government should play in Ferguson? We'll start with you, Representative Schupp.
Yeah, you know, hearts were broken on that Saturday in August, and I think hearts still continue to break throughout the state. But the problems of race relations and safe communities did not begin on August 9th. They've been around for a long time, and they're not going to be solved here today with a couple of minutes of remarks. I think legislation has its part, excuse me, but it will be more about leadership and cooperation and a spirit of understanding that move us forward to address the issues of racial tension in this state. What we all want are safe communities, where law enforcement has the tools and the training to do their jobs well, and where families like yours and mine can send their young people outside without worried about violence in the community. When we start to respect the ideas of inclusion and diversity, integrity, respect, peace, and hopefulness, then we'll find solutions to these problems. And they're not and have not come quickly, and they're not going to come easily. But the time and the effort that we invest will be well worth it. Lives are at stake here. Currently, as a state representative and going forward as a state senator, I am and will work with those who want to learn from the challenges of Ferguson and strengthen our communities as healthy, safe, and welcoming places.
Thank you. Mr. Ashcroft.
Well, I mean, the first thing I'd like to say is it was a tragedy. You know, there's an individual that died, and we all, you know, that's terrible. Going beyond that, though, I really think that we need to be careful with politicizing what happened there. We need to remember that lives have been greatly affected, one lost. And I think that far too often we've seen where politicians have decided to politicize this issue. They've called for a vigorous prosecution before there was ever an investigation. And I would want to be one that would caution. I think what we need to make sure happens here is that there is an investigation, which I believe is ongoing, and that justice is served. That if there are individuals that should be punished, that after we have the investigation, we make that determination and that we grant people justice. But I think from a legislative standpoint, I'm very reticent to stand up and say we need to do this and we need to do that while the investigation is still going on. I think the people of Ferguson have been through a lot and they deserve better than that. They deserve to know that there's going to be a full investigation. We're not going to make some sort of knee-jerk reaction that we think will help us in the polls, but we're actually going to look at what happened. We're going to make sure there was a transparent, a full investigation, and we're going to move on from there, because there are things that we do need to be done. But this is not something that we should be politicizing.
Recently in Missouri, some on both sides of both fringes have brought up attacks on the Missouri's tax credit policy. Many people in St. Louis County live in such developments. Many of them live in your district. As a state senator, what will be your stance on those economic development enhancement tools, Mr. Ashcroft?
Well, I think that we really need to look at tax credits in the same way that we look at anything that the government does. I go back to my years as an engineer. I think that any time the government is going to do something, we ought to say, what is the government trying to do? What is the program actually doing? Because unfortunately, I think we can all think of a lot of instances where the government says it's going to have one outcome and it gets a different outcome. And then we need to look at what is the cost to the citizens and what is the benefit. I mean, in engineering, we talk about a cost-benefit analysis, and that's what we need to do. We don't do that with enough programs. We need to make sure that the program is remediating the problem that we've pointed out, and then that what we're paying for it is less than what we're getting out of it. I mean, it's the same approach that we should take for all of our programs, and we should continually be looking at our programs to make sure that they're doing that. Unfortunately, in government, we don't.
Representative Schupp.
So when we talked about it, we talked about low-income housing tax credits specifically, so I'm going to address that issue. And what we've talked about before is that tax policies are really a tool to get what we want. And what these low-income housing tax credits do is provide some of our most vulnerable citizens, like our veterans, with a place to live and help them make the transition from being homeless to becoming productive members of the community. These are the very types of tax credit policies that help real people, including our seniors. And we know that the private sector alone is not going to fill that void. So we need these kinds of policies to help build these low-income housing areas for people to live. This policy intersects very well with mental health and senior services, things for veterans, and the Missouri Housing Development Commission has actually put into place services to help people who are suffering from, veterans who may be suffering from PTSD or other kinds of illnesses, to wrap around services to support the people who are reestablishing their lives in these low-income housing development projects. I'm very proud of that kind of work, and with any tax credit, as my opponent said, we need to know what we're getting, and we need to know that we're getting the most out of those dollars. We need to know that the program is effective. Our low-income housing tax credit is an effective program, and this program suffers when we continue to give our taxpayer dollars away to billionaires who really don't need that money. Thank you.
Outside of tax credits, the 24th District's one of the wealthiest in the state. It has a lot of economic development that happens here. What are some ideas that you could take to not only grow the 24th District, but also to take and use in the rest of the state for economic development purposes? I'll start with you, Representative Schupp.
Sure, thanks. Well, Missouri businesses do enjoy low tax rates. The Missouri Chamber of Commerce, as I said before, has given us some other ways that are important to help develop economically in the state of Missouri. For example, they emphasize to me and to people in my committees that I serve on the importance of a well-educated workforce, both to fill and to create the jobs of tomorrow, to help develop innovators and entrepreneurs who want to live in a welcoming community. We need to put into place good schools for their kids, accessible public transportation, including convenient air travel, and amenities we're known for here, like our great zoo and our wonderful museums and our centers of music and entertainment. Those kinds of quality of life issues bring economic development to the state of Missouri. We can grow our way into prosperity, but we can't simply continue to cut our way into prosperity. We need to stop trying to squeeze the middle class and working people through misguided policies such as so-called right to work and an end to the prevailing wage. We need to give Missouri businesses first crack at state contracts so they'll employ people here at home instead of sending our jobs elsewhere. And let's remember, these low taxes are just one tool in the toolbox that represents what it takes to help develop a thriving economy. I'm proud of my work as a former Planning and Zoning Commissioner because I was there in the 24th District when we were welcoming the world-renowned Danforth Plant Science Center. Bridge Park, which is now on that campus, continues to grow with innovative new startups. In our 24th District, we can continue to encourage the biotech industries of today and tomorrow. It's an exciting time, and we cannot be stifled by believing that the way to move forward is by cutting our way there. Growth begets growth, and success begets success. Let's be ready and willing to welcome the next big opportunity.
Mr. Ashcroft.
I agree that the greatest incentive we can have for economic development is a good educational system. One of the reasons why I'm running, and one of the main motivations of everything that I say, is the fact that every child needs to have an opportunity for a good education. Because if we don't create those educational opportunities, the opportunities that that child has later on in life for pursuing a good job, for starting their own business, for being able to innovate because of ideas that they have, is stunted. I think it's very important that the state create an environment which is conducive to growth. We need to have companies that are growing and that are hiring individuals. As I've knocked on thousands of doors and called thousands of people, the most common recurring theme I hear is people that cannot find the job they want. They're working part-time instead of full-time. They're in a minimum wage job when they obviously they'd like to move up, or they have the skills to, but the jobs aren't there. Or they were working in a job that's less than a job they had 5 years ago. And we need to have an economic engine, which St. Louis can be. The 24th District is an incredible district with great potential if the government would get out of the way. Far too often we, on one hand, have the government inviting in companies or inviting in startups or people to start their companies, and then we start the stifling regulation and excessive red tape when they're here. We can't be doing that. We need to be growing opportunities for all of the citizens of this state so they can move from one job to another and really live the life that they want to.
Last issue is one that's impacted every person in St. Louis County in one way or another. It's a school transfer issue. There was a bill passed last session that was vetoed, and obviously it'll be a big topic in January. The question would be, do you agree with the previous law that was passed? And if not, what will be your solution? And we'll start with you, Mr. Ashcroft.
Well, I think that the most important thing we can have for any child is that we have good local schools. Probably the #1 predictor of how kids do in school and their educational achievement is parental involvement. And if we have children at local schools, it makes it easier for their parents to get involved. If children go to good local schools, it helps them to be involved collaboratively with other students because they're not having to drive long distances to work with those other students outside of schools. It helps them to get involved in extracurricular activity, which helps build character, build camaraderie, teamwork, and also with academic achievement. And I also think good local schools help to bind and grow the community together. Having said that, the purpose of education, the purpose of the state providing education is to make sure that every child has the opportunity to get a good education. And we need to not lose sight of that. Far too often we've said we're going to fix this local school, which is the right thing to do, but we've forgotten to give an avenue for those children that are at that school right now to get an education. And we've got to make sure we don't let years pass kids by without a good opportunity for education. So I really believe we ought to have a two-track proposal. I think the main track is our best goal, and what we need to get to is to have good local schools. But we have to provide an opportunity for children that are at schools that aren't providing a good education or a good ability to get a good education. We have to provide them another avenue for an education. We can't just say, we're sorry, it's too bad, you were born at the wrong time, you were born in the wrong location, you're not going to get an education. We have too many people that have been passed by in our schools, and we need to do whatever it takes to give kids an opportunity for a quality education. That's one of the foundational purposes of government.
Okay. Representative Schupp.
Well, education is the reason I got into politics, and Jay, you and I have both been teachers. I believe that every child deserves a quality education in his or her own community, just as you do. I simply do not accept the notion that we can't have good schools in more than just a few places in this state. I think the transfer law is a result of a lack of vision and, frankly, a lack of respect. Consider for a moment the school districts in the 24th Senatorial District. We have Parkway, we have Ladue, we have Pattonville, and we have Rittner. I've worked closely with each of those superintendents, Dr. Jenke, Dr. Marty, Dr. Kilbride, and Dr. Fulton. We know that that each of those districts share some of the same challenges, but each also has its own unique challenges. Kids in Rittner have different things that they need than the kids in Ladue, and how we fund schools is supposed to help make up for those challenges. Almost a decade ago, when the current foundation formula was put into place under a Republican governor and a Republican legislature, a commitment was made with regard to how much money it would take minimally to provide an adequate education in each of our schools. That was the basis for the foundation formula, the promise we made to our schools and to our kids. And today, underfunding that formula, we have broken that promise to our kids in the schools that need help the most. My opponent says schools have more funding than they need. It is appalling, and it is that misguided mentality that has led us to a place where we are now. Some of our schools are failing our kids because people, like my opponent, would rather line the pockets of millionaires than use our tax dollars to ensure a pathway to a brighter future for our students. I think he's wrong on the issue. Thank you.
Now at this time we'll do our closing statements, and we'll start with you, Mr. Ashcroft.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone that's taking the time, to be here while we film this and just reading about it and watching it after the fact. I think that far too often we just spend time worried about, from a governance, the politicians and the policies of individuals that are running, and we forget how important it is for individuals to be involved, because that is the strongest part of our government, is that the everyday, you, me, all of our neighbors, we are what controls and gives guidance to our governance and to our government. And I thank you for taking part in this and being a part of this. I just think this is very important. When I look at all these issues that we have before the state and the ways in which we can improve the 24th district, I think of my children, I think of their friends and other children like them, and the ways that we can provide better opportunities for them, and that we can make sure that the future is brighter and that we're doing the best that we can. I also think that my engineering background will be helpful in finding solutions. I think too many people go to Jefferson City to fight because of whose idea it is, and I think we need to remember that there really is no end to the good you can do when you don't care who gets credit for what you do.
Representative Schupp.
Well, thank you, Scott, and thanks to the Missouri Times for this opportunity. To my friends and neighbors throughout the 24th District, thanks for listening, and thanks for all the support that you provide. As we learned in 2010, the winner of this same seat was elected by just 126 votes out of 60,000 votes cast. Every single vote matters. Colleagues and constituents alike recognize me as someone who works collaboratively to get the hard work done. I seek out opinions and varying ideas from very different people. We know that good ideas can come from anywhere, and that's why I have the support of both Democrats and Republicans in this race. And those are the reasons why I will serve you well as our next state senator. You know me. You know my track record. You know I roll up my sleeves and find energy in working hard with people of varying interests and varying ideas. From practical work to improve student achievement, such as air conditioning our schools, elementary foreign language, lowering class sizes, to a vision for our state that moves me to honor and respect our veterans, to trust women to make decisions about their own health care, to ensure our seniors have the option to age in their homes, and to work for good-paying jobs for all Missourians. I've been on the front lines of fighting for a better Missouri for all of us. I thank you for the support you've given me and the opportunity to speak to you today. It is with gratitude and humility and genuine hopefulness about our future that I ask you to go out and vote November 4th, and to please vote for me. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank all of our readers. Thank everyone that came here personally to view the debate. I want to personally thank both of you for coming. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in a week or two. Thanks a lot.